I'm sorry, I didn't start the broadcast. Can you all hear me now and see and see me on video? Please type yes if you can hear me and see me. So I had been on for the last 5 minutes and I was only Erica could hear me because she's an organizer because I hadn't started the broadcast. I apologize for that. All right, awesome. Now we're starting to get responses. Hi, Sandra, great to have you back. All right, awesome. Hi, Theodore. Okay, so please, real quick, it's already 12 o'clock, but I always like to know who is in the audience. If you have never attended an AMA LTL session and this is your first time, please say where you're joining us from, what city and state, and what organization you're joining us from today. So shout out your city, state, and what organization you're joining us from today. And I am going to go ahead and share my screen. So you guys hopefully can see my screen now as well. Joan from Buffalo, New York, from the VA. Great to have you here, Joan. Great to have you here. All right, I see some new names, so I don't want to call you out, but Carlene Santiago. All right, Theodore, Uptown, New York, Brookhaven National Light, Department of Energy. Great to have you, Theodore. VA, Connecticut Healthcare System, Michelle. All right, so yeah, New York, Connecticut. New York is representing today. Carlene from the Brookhaven National Lab in Long Island. Great, great, great. All right, all right. Great to have all of you here. We do have a full house. We have almost 50 people on the webinar today. And this is one of my favorite topics, communication, because, you know, I'm a trainer and I love to talk. So it's one of my favorite topics. And we are going to go ahead and get started. It's hit from the beginning, so my slideshow should be up. There we go. There we go. All right. So today's communication, and my goal for today is that we can just you know, get some tips. You know, our lunchtime learning webinar series are only half an hour long, so I'm sure you all are consummate professionals and you communicate in your job every day, but as a leader, as a manager, or just as a professional, you can always learn new things as we learn more about these topics. I have my bio on the screen. I'm not going to read it, but just for you all to be familiar with me if you're joining us for the first time. The main things that I want to pick out from there is that I'm a ICF certified executive coach, and what I do other than running my company AMA Consulting is I coach and develop leaders specifically within the federal workforce to help them develop and harness their leadership philosophy, successful and impactful in their various organizations. We have also Teresa. Welcome. Teresa is from DLA in Fort Belvoir. Great to have you, Teresa. Great to have you from DLA. Again, if you're just joining us for the first time, please state your city and state and what agency you're with. And when I come back to the chat box, I'll make sure that I shout you out. All right, but we're gonna go ahead and get started because we do have a fair amount to cover today. All right, so again, what are we gonna discuss today? I already talked about that. It's really enhancing your leadership presence through effective communication. What is leadership presence? Leadership presence is how you show up. Leadership presence is about your affect. It's about your impression on people, it's about your energy. And you can definitely enhance that through effective communication. It's also about what you will learn is how to use effective communication to build and maintain relationships. And then lastly, to advocate and gather support for your ideas. This is a huge one because I think a lot of times we assume that because we have a great idea, everybody's going to be on board and believe in our ideas and just give a platform. But sometimes you have to advocate. Sometimes you have to convince, you have to persuade people, you have to bring people on board with your idea. And effective communication is one of the tools that you can do, you can use to accomplish that. All right, I always like to start with quotes whenever I can. A few quotes here about leadership, about communication. So George Bernard Shaw says the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it is taking place. So, you know, just because you're talking, that doesn't mean that you're communicating. Peter Drucker, who is somebody that I really, really follow about everything concerning leadership. Says the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. I love that so much. And one of the things that we're going to discuss today is active listening. And we're gonna really delve into that. What does it mean to really hear what isn't said? Again, communication is more than just talking, right? There's so much that we can, so many cues that we can pick up from other things to make meaning. Communication is about making meaning. All right, the last but not least is the art of communication is the language of leadership. As you all know, for those of you who follow me and are faithful members of AMA LTL, my passion is really to help leaders develop their competencies to be successful. And when I talk about leaders, I'm not talking about people who have a title or people who have a specific position. Everybody is a leader because at the very minimum, you should be leading yourself. And the art of communication is the language of leadership. Communication is the language of leadership. I believe it is one of the greatest competencies that a leader can have. Is really knowing how to connect with people through communication. All right. So these are the quotes that we're going to start with just to get you framed. We all know what communication is, but what is effective communication? Effective communication. And this is I don't know if we've all taken classes, we went through school and we all know what communication is generally, but here are some key things I want to pick here. Effective communication has only taken place when there is a sender, number one, there is a receiver, number four, there is a message, there is a medium through which the message is being passed, and the receiver understands the intended meaning of the message. There is meaning making. If these five things are not present, effective communication hasn't taken place. So, what are some of your thoughts in terms of how we communicate, especially in today's world? We're all virtual, mostly virtual, I would say. We're communicating virtually. What does that look like? Like right now, we are on GoToWebinar. You all can see me, but I can't see you. But I try to, the GoToWebinar is the medium through which I'm delivering message to you today. But I also try to pick up cues from you to check for meaning making by looking at the chat box, asking for feedback. It's a little harder to effectively communicate in this totally virtual world that we're in. We're all, so phone communication, email communication, using video like Zoom and GoToWebinar like we're doing today. But yeah, we still have to effectively communicate, especially when you're working with teams who are maybe all working virtually from different locations. People have different things going on in the background. Some people are working home and they have kids who are still going to virtual school from home. All of that is in the jumble box, right? And you're trying to communicate, you're in a meeting, you're trying to get your point across. However, are you communicating effectively? Okay, so effective communication is when the sender transmits a message to a receiver and the receiver understands the intended meaning of the message. So it's a loop. It's delivery, it's meaning making and response. So that is the loop. If meaning making hasn't taken place and the response that matches the intended meaning of the sender hasn't taken place, you haven't communicated effectively. All right. So, what does this mean, and how does this help you? Okay. So, leadership, as I said, executive presence is about authenticity. It's about being who you say you are, and that's one of the hardest things I found as a leader, because there's so many nuances, especially if you're trying to present an idea. Sometimes if you're trying to give feedback and it's not necessarily positive feedback, and there's so many, we have to be politically correct, we have to be polite, we have to be civil, there are also ethics things involved in what you say. So we have all this different mixture, and so sometimes these things press on our authenticity. It presses on our authenticity, and one of the biggest impediments to being able to communicate effectively is when who you say you are, or who you believe you are, doesn't match what you say. It doesn't match how you communicate. It doesn't match how you engage. Okay, so communicating effectively, it helps you to really dig deep and be authentic and show that and bring that out. All of the greatness that is inside you, all of the capabilities, all of the knowledge that you have, it can't come out. It can't show if you don't communicate effectively. Secondly, effective communication is about displaying confidence. As I talked about, is body posture. And the biggest way to boost your confidence when it comes to communication is being prepared. Whenever you have to speak, you have to at a meeting, you have to be at a meeting, even if it's 5 minutes, take some time and be clear in your mind about what you're bringing to the conversation. Who are you talking to? So for example, I'll give you a typical example. I just got off an online conference for one of our clients, Department of Education. There were over 200 people in attendance in the conference, and there were like 10 speakers or 11 speakers. Okay, so all this information is coming at me. But prior to attending the conference, I did my preparation and I was clear on who I wanted to hear from. Okay, so sometimes you can be in a whole meeting, but your audience is one person. Or sometimes your audience can be everybody in the meeting, but you wouldn't know if you're not prepared. If you're not setting the intention of what it is you want to communicate, what is the why behind your message, right? What do you want people to take away? What do you want them to understand? What do you want to be new after you communicate with them? And that's where that meaning making comes in. Okay, so being prepared, it really helps boost your confidence. One of the things I always tell people is if you can tell somebody speaking about something that they prepared for, they are knowledgeable about because they're confident. When they get questions, they can answer. And if they don't know the answer, they can come back to it because they were prepared. So a big way to boost your confidence when it comes to effective communication is being prepared. It's also being mindful of your body posture. One of the things that I used to do when I first started speaking over 10 years ago is I would literally stand in front of the mirror and talk about what I wanted to talk about and see how I show up. Now, I have some unique postures to me. If you notice, I tilt a little bit to the side. I tilt my head a little bit to the side. I'm aware of those things. So it's not that you have to have perfect posture. It's really more about self-awareness. Being aware of how you're using your hand gestures, your body posture. So for example, if you're in a meeting, you don't want to cross your hands because that may convey they're not interested. So those things help display confidence, right, in your communication, building credibility. So your words are very powerful. I mean, when I teach a 2-day class on effective communication, I talk about language. I talk about language acts, and your words are very, very powerful. So use your words wisely, use your words carefully, understand also that culture and beliefs play different roles when it comes to words. So some words may be acceptable with certain people, but for certain people, they denote something different. You be sensitive to that. So in order for you to have credibility when you're communicating, whether it's by email, whether it's by phone, whether it's in person, whether it's on a video cam, be very mindful of your words and be conscious of what I talked about in terms of um, cultural applicability to your words and biases that that you may not even know that you have. So for example, you may use a word, it's okay because you think that that's fine. It may be offensive to other people of different cultures. You need to be aware of that. Also, truth. Okay, so I know that we've been living in kind of like a fake news world for the last couple of years, and truth has kind of like become something else. But I'm telling you, you cannot have credibility in the long run if you are not uh, aligned with true facts. Okay, decisiveness is another way to build credibility. Decisiveness is really more about clarity, being clear. So it's not really about wrong or right, or always wanting to champion your own, your own point. It's about being, and I think this clarity or decisiveness is very, very important in email. So when you communicate by email, nobody wants to an email where you have to scroll down and and it's like you're talking about 20 different things in an email. That's not effective, because then people are going to make meaning, because for you are the sender, the receiver is going to be like, okay, this is so much, what am I supposed to do, right? And then their response may not be what you want, because you weren't clear, you were decisive in what your message is to be. I always recommend to people, if you're going to send an email, um, and you have more than 2 or 3 points to make, probably pick up the phone and call the person, because if it's very hard to explain 5, 6 different things in email, land and let the other person understand what you're saying, because people are rushing, people are just scanning through stuff, and if your email is already long, they're just looking for the buzzwords, and that's where they lose context of what you're trying to say, and they lose the meaning of what you were trying to say, and that's where issues can start to come up, and wires can get crossed. Okay, so decisiveness, clarity is very, very important, especially when you're doing communications, emails, or reports, or what have you. You have to be really clear, decisive. You may have to do your communication in different bits and try to link together so that you're able to really make meaning. Empathy is your connection. That's why empathy is important. You can't build empathy if you know the points, if you know where it's important. So that's empathy. To the point. Everything is moving fast. People are short on time. People are in back-to-back meetings. To the point. I had one of my professors used to say in college is, when she calls you up to make a point about something in class, she says, no preamble, no post-amble, just the amble. That's the best way to communicate. People's attention spans are very short right now. So to the point, and just land your plane, okay? Because people don't have time. All right, before I go into active listening, I just want to check in. And the questions was, what are your thoughts? Maybe I should go back to that slide. What are your thoughts about, just the points that I raised in communicating effectively, and how it helps you build influence? Because again, I always tell people, sometimes people can be selling snake oil, but because they communicate so well, people go with them, people buy into the ideas, people follow them. So it's not necessarily the value of your content. A lot of times it's your delivery. And that's what we are talking about, is the skill set of how you're putting your communication together. That is the competency that we're discussing. And that's what is aligned to your leadership presence. So authenticity, confidence, and building credibility, all of that is going to increase your influence. So what are some of your thoughts around that? Or do you have any questions? Are there particular areas where you struggle? Latonya says, I like this point. Thank you so much. Latonya from Clinton, Maryland. Erica Lamar from Brookhaven National Lab. Okay, Brookhaven National Lab is really representing today. Are you all from the same team? All of you from there? Just let me know. I just love to know if you all from the same team and what it is that you do at the lab. Yeah, so what are your thoughts? Do you have any questions about confidence, about authenticity, about being clear and decisive? So Jones says, I often have those where the speaker tries to cram in hours of info into a 1 hour call. That's right, it completely loses me. Your point about keeping the message meaningful and to the point is great. Yes, and this is another too. So John really brings up a good point, and I want to share a quick tip with you. Sometimes you do have a lot of information. You have to realize, okay, what can I parse out? What can I deliver to people on call? What can I send as a follow-up email for them to review later to get more information? And then even take a step further, if the email doesn't suffice, I'm happy to set up a 5-10 minute call with you to explain more detail. I think this is where you really have to develop the competency. And this is where leaders, effective leaders, influential leaders set themselves apart from just people who have a title and who are doing the work. Because if you're an effective leader, you have an hour for a call. You also want to give people opportunity for questions and for some dialogue. So you should prepare your content to hit the high notes. The most important things that people need to know for that hour. Prepare everything else in writing to follow up with an email and tell them, I'm going to follow up with an email with more details that you can review. And then if you have questions and you want to explore further or discuss further, I'm happy to set up a call. So you see how you're still communicating, but now you've broken it up into three parts so that you can communicate effectively. So that Joan really brings up a great scenario, and I just gave you a tip of how you can handle that if you ever find yourself in that situation where you have a ton of info to cram into 1 hour. All right, any other thoughts, questions, and comments before we go into active listening? How about confidence? I want to see if anybody has anything to say about confidence. Any thoughts, questions about confidence? I see some stuff coming up. Any questions, thoughts about confidence? Nothing? Okay. I thought somebody was typing. So all right, I'll go ahead and continue then. If we don't have anything about anything on confidence, well, if you have any questions, please feel free to always go into the chat. So I'm moving back to my slide, and I'll come back to the chat again at the end of the presentation. All right. So I talked the quote earlier about one of the most important things about communication is hearing what was not said, right? And so how do you hear what was not said? Again, I understand that this may be very challenging for us to really be tuned in, paying attention, especially in a completely virtual world. But active listening is one of the tools that you can practice to help you with making meaning, okay? With understanding and making meaning. Okay, so level one is you're listening to the words that the person is saying, but you're hearing your inner thoughts. So I hope that this is not any of you on your resume. I hope that this you're engaged in the webinar to where you're paying attention, or you could be listening to me and maybe you have email up and an email comes up, and then all of a sudden your mind goes to what that email is about and what your response is to that email. So yeah, you're listening to me, you're listening to my voice, you're listening to the words, but nothing that I'm saying is going to even land because you're hearing your inner thoughts regarding something else. Or you may be listening, you may not be on email, or you're sitting here thinking, what am I going to make for dinner? Or I have to, I have this errand that I have to run. Right? So level one listening is where a lot of times 80% of our conversations and our communication is taking place. No wonder we have such a huge issue with miscommunication and conflict and yeah, because we're not intentional. We're not present. We're hearing the words, but we're listening to our inner thoughts. Level two is not listening to respond, but listening to understand. So sometimes we are listening where we get an email or we're on the phone with somebody and we have our preconceived notion, we have our framework of what we think about this person. For example, if it's your supervisor, you're like, here she goes again. She wants to ask me to do something else. She has another problem with me. So you're listening, yes, you're hearing every word she's saying, but it's filtering through the lens of what your response is going to be. So you're not listening to really understand. You're listening to formulate a response um, based on your own preconceived notion of the message. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I hope I didn't jumble my words there. But yeah, so that's level two listening. And then 50% of us, when we're not in level, we're in level two. So we're listening in the meeting, but we're already preparing our rebuttal in our head. We're saying, yeah, I have a comeback for that, or I deal with that. Oh yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, let's do that. So you're not letting the message go through your what I call the ladders of inference. You're not letting the message go through so that you actually get to, oh, okay, what are they really trying to say? What is behind all of this? What is the why? What is the meaning of what they're saying? So you understand what they're saying, or you're understanding to formulate a response. Okay, so that's level two. Level three is the height of active listening. And a lot of times, so for example, there are some politicians who are really, really good at dropping into level 3 listening at the dime of a hat. So they'll be in a really large town hall and somebody asks a question, and right there they're tuning to that person, they're looking at their body cues, they're picking up information. If it's a man, they're wondering, okay, how old probably is he? What does he do? What are some of the potential? Where is he coming from? Like, what are some of the potential things could be his concerns that's prompting him to ask this question? So they're not just listening to the question, they're looking at the context. And this is skill. This is something that you can develop with very, very deep self-awareness, with um, with deep awareness, generally situational awareness. This is something that you can do. A lot of times, most times, it takes us a while to drop into level 3, listening to make meaning. This is where you're looking at the body cues. This is where you're looking at the eye contact. You're looking at the tone of voice. If their tone of voice is rising, that tells you that this is an issue that aggravates them. So you're picking up everything and you're making meaning, you're understanding the why behind what you're saying, and you're responding to that from that point. So then you're forming a deeper connection. This is where you're really connecting by dropping into level 3 listening. Okay. So for me, most times I try to, at the very minimum, be at level 2, because I stay very busy. I run a government contracting firm. I didn't really talk about our capabilities because we didn't have time, but we do a ton of services for federal government. We provide training services, business transformation, PMO work, IT support services. We work with the Department of Education, with DoD. So I'm managing my company, I'm managing my employees. I'm also doing the work that I love to do, which is coaching leaders, speaking, doing leadership development programs. And so I'm very busy. And I have a family as well to take care of. So a lot of times the temptation is for me to be at level 1. It's like, yeah, I'm here, but I'm not here. Okay, but I really had to work on this because what was happening is I was missing a lot of information. I was missing deadlines. I was forgetting stuff. That's because I was trying to do 10 different things at the same time and not really being attentive. So I try to at least drop into level 2, especially on meetings, on calls. Listen, at the very minimum, I want to understand, even though I may be coming at it um, from my own preconceived notion, but at least I want to understand what you're saying, and I want to be present. And then when it's very, very deep issues, especially when decisions have to be made as a result of that communication, whether it's email, whether it's phone, whatever it is, I drop into level 3. I drop into level 3 because I want to make sure that I'm making the best decision that I can make in that moment, and I can't make the best decision with bad intel. So if I'm not listening correctly and we haven't connected in our communication, I didn't make meaning correctly, then I'm going to make a poor decision as a leader. And so dropping into level 3 is critical, especially when the communication that you're having is going to lead to you making a decision. Okay. So any questions, comments, thoughts on this? Sorry. Questions, comments on active listening. First and foremost, have you heard about active listening? Is this something that you've been aware of, that you practice? Um, oh, happened. Oh, here we go. Latonya says, I agree about being prepared and rehearsing. Yeah, those are good points about preparation. Thank you, Latonya. Yeah, so any questions about active listening? Level 1, level 2, level 3. Any questions, any comments about that? All right, so while we don't have any comments, I'm gonna move right along, and then again at the end, you can feel free to questions. So really clear about direct communication. I kind of introduced it in the 2 slides prior about no preamble, no post-amble, amble, go straight to the point. Sometimes it's hard because we want to explain ourselves. We want to provide context. I was coaching a leader, and his issue was he couldn't talk in short sentences because he wanted to really make sure that he brings people along, he carries them. And so he tended to ramble and go on and on. And so people will be disengaged. And so I told him, I said, write down what it is you want to say. I always go by the rule of three, no more than 3 points at a time. If it's more than three, break it up and put it in another conversation. And then count your words. Like sometimes you just have to go back to the basics. Count your words. So if you've written a sentence and it's 15 words, figure out, can I make this 10? Okay. So that's what preparation helps you with. And that's to Latoya's point. Is prepare, research your topic, research your audience, make sure you're speaking their lingo. Count your words. Tailor your message. This is hard because we want to demonstrate that we are knowledgeable. We want to show that, we know this content, we have domain expertise. And so we tend to put in things that are not relevant. Tailor your message to your audience. So that's direct communication. Prepare, research your topic, tailor your message, keep pointed, use direct language. Go at what it is that you want to say, land that, then you can provide context around it. Grab people's attention, let them know, okay, is this something that is the direct message something that is important to me? Then they're engaged. Then you can start to build the flesh around it. You can put the meat around it. But if you start with the meat and go like, I don't know where this is, if this is not important, then you're not doing direct communication. That's where you're doing too much preamble or post-amble, and you've left the amble. Okay, so I hope these are good tips. This is my contact information. We are going to have our webinars in March. Are going to be Erica, can you post those? I didn't have them on this slide. Yeah, so it's 12:30. I see some more comments in the questions box. So Teresa says, UPenn offers a wonderful course on resilience that outlines the thinking traps of jumping to conclusions. Mind reading, me, them, always, everything. Each one of us has a tendency to fall into one of 6 thinking traps in our listening and communicating. Excellent. So that's the jumping about conclusions. Already we have our own frame of reference. We have our mindsets about certain things, certain people, about ourselves, and we respond from there. So we never let the message to go through our frame of reference and then make meaning based on what the message is. We're making meaning based on our own internal constructs that we have. That those internal constructs, like Teresa said, can be around me. So for example, if my internal construct is I'm the best person on this team and only my idea matters. When people are talking, you're filtering your information through that construct. And yeah, you may understand what they say, but you're coming with a rebuttal because I want to let them know that my idea is better. If it's them, let's say somebody's giving feedback about something and it went wrong, you're like, well, that's their problem. Them, it's always them. Okay, so that's the internal construct that you're responding from. You're not responding by that message actually going through your frame of reference and making meaning for what the message is, responding from your internal construct. And a lot of times we don't know this, right? Because it's blind spots. And also this is not something that you get overnight, and this is something that we constantly have to work on. So this is a continuous process. It's like deepening your skill and expanding your competency around this. The more you practice it, the more you're aware of it, the better you get at communicating at that higher level, the better you get at being drop into level 3, active listening, and more you build your influence. All right, great point, Teresa. Any other questions, comments? Questions, comments? All right, guys, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead. Latoya says, I need to ensure that I'm practicing active listening, particularly in this virtual environment. Yeah, the virtual environment is hard. I think it's just hard to pay attention, period, especially if you're working from home, because I think like as human beings, we're home, we're different in a different mind space when we're at work. And some people say they're more productive at home, excuse me, but everybody's different. So you don't know what mindset that you're in when you're at home. So it can be hard. So I agree with you practice, practice, practice. At least everybody, please commit to practicing at least level 2 on your communications. And if you join us for the next AMA LTL, I want to hear about it. Also, real quick, while you guys are still here, we are in the process of topics for April, May, and June. So, what are some of the topics that you want to hear more about on the AMA LTL? If you could just type some of the topics, maybe things that you see as a big issue within your organization or with you, something that you want to learn more about, type those topics, please, before you hang up today. Welcome, Carlene. Joan, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad that this was helpful. So let me know, Joan, what are some of the topics you want to hear about? Carlene, Latanya, Teresa, give me some feedback. What are some of the topics that you want to hear about on future AMA LTLs? We want to make sure that we're communicating effectively and we're getting feedback from our audience and giving them content that is helpful to them. Oh, how communicating skills have to be out there because of virtual meetings. Yes, I like that. Communicating in a virtual setting and navigating the unwritten rules in organization. Okay, I'm taking notes, and Erica is capturing this as well. Michelle, you're welcome. I'm glad that this was valuable. Challenging gender bias for women in leadership position. So I'm doing a women in leadership in March. So this was really great. I'm going to follow up with challenging gender bias. I'm going to follow up with that in April. I love it. Virtual communication competencies. Political savvy. Yeah, Latanya, that I was just gonna say that political savvy is the navigating the unwritten rules in organizations. That is a tough one. And I think I don't know if we've had it yet this year. I think we had it late last year, but it's definitely on the list. Yeah, that was a very popular one that we had. All right. We still have a few people, so please I want to hear some of the topics that you would like to hear about. Andrea, you're welcome. It's always great to have you. Making my voice heard and how to get a sit at the table. Latonya, that's exactly the topic for our webinar. Erica, can you post our webinar topics for March? Because that's one of the topics is getting a sit at the table, Latonya. Yeah, visual communication. So Teresa is raising a great point. We're no longer in an environment that is simply oral and written. There's the virtual environment is stirring us to other communication competencies such as visual. That's right. That's right. Okay, so great, 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 great feedback, Teresa. Yeah, Latonya, making my voice heard and how to get a seat at the table. Absolutely. Okay, so thank you, Teresa. She says, great 30-minute session, a lot of substantive info in a short period of time. Carlene says, effective communication will help with home life and work life as well. Absolutely. Oh, yes. So if anybody is in any kind of relationship, effective communication is necessary because especially in a relationship where emotions are involved, yes, you need to really develop that skill. Absolutely. All right. Um, did I miss anything? Thanks, Carlene, for that great feedback. That was awesome. Okay, so I think we got some good points on the webinar topics. I would have loved to get more. Boundary setting. Okay, so boundary setting, that is related to a topic that we have, workplace civility. So that's a webinar we have, workplace civility. That's a great one. Yeah. I think that would be a good topic is can we set boundaries at work? because every job description comes with other duties as assigned, but how far does that go? Can we set boundaries at work? That would be a great topic. I like that. Yep. All right. Any other suggestions for topics? Okay. Thank you, everybody. I think we're complete. I'm not seeing anything else coming in the questions box. I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think Erica posted the webinars next week. Screen went out. No, no, no. I don't see the webinars. Erica, did you post it in the questions box? Because I don't see it. Let me check real quick. Okay, well, we'll send it out. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.